All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for another episode of Writing Shotgun with Charlie, which is on the pages of Armed Lifestyle magazine. And I have with me Ed Monk. Ed, it is great to see you.
Good to see you. It was fun to be in your car, but it's just as fun to do the Zoom thing. So this is
It's
good
more
for
fun
me.
in the car. Come on,
Yeah,
let's face
yeah,
it. But you're a busy guy out there. You obviously were well. What I'd like to talk about today is your book called First 30 Seconds, which is you've gone through and you've analyzed all the school shootings and the mass shootings and things like this, and kind of figured out that everything that we need to know comes down to time and math. So please tell us more about this. How you what made you want to do this research, and what you found out when you did all this research.
yeah. Surprisingly, if I'd have written a book that said, "Hey, if your stove catches your kitchen wall on fire, if you grab an extinguisher and put it out in 15 or 20 seconds, you'll have far, far, far less damage than if you find a phone, call 911, talk to an operator, they call the fire department, and the fire department arrives and put it out." Either way, the fire gets put out, but you'll have less damage if you do it quickly. People wouldn't buy the book because that's just so obvious it's not worth it. But that's the exact same thing for the active shooter. And why I started doing the research was strictly out of personal interest as I left a career, a 24-year career active duty in the Army, where what we normally talked about day to day was how would we do deadly, ruthless violence against other people while those people we were fighting were trying to kill us. And I was plopped into public school, in a very, very good school. And those few days before the kids showed up when we're getting training, and all of us, including me, the new teacher, is told, okay, if we have an active shooter, you know our drill. We, the teachers, get their kids and put them in the corner of the room, and we wait till the cops come here and stop the active shooter. And I thought that's crazy. And I'm looking around the room, and everyone else is shaking their head up and down. That's right. That's right. That's what we do. And I thought, 40 years of school shootings, and this is the best we've come up with, which is gather up in a group and wait to see if the cop or the active shooter gets to our kids first.
Hmm.
It's insanity. So that's why I started researching. Like, what am I missing? There's got to be something, because these aren't stupid people. They're people with master's degrees and PhDs, and they have the government, they have experts, they have consultants, they have all these people to interact with. And we've known about school shootings for 30 plus years. So I can't believe this is the best we've come up with. And of course, they call it best practices. These are best practices. Well, no, they're not. They're worst practices. Other than shooting my own kids, I can't make the active shooter's job easier than by packing my kids in a tight group and waiting on them to be shot. That's why I started. It
Yeah,
wasn't to write a book. It wasn't to teach on it. It was out of, there's got to be something I'm missing if all of these experts are saying that we pack ourselves in a tight group. That's just crazy.
yeah, it totally is. And the one of the things you brought up in the book is, and I thought it was a great point, is when we're not, we being the gun folks, we aren't telling teachers they need to do this. We're asking them to do it, and asking them if they want to do this. Here's a method you could do this. Here's how you could take some training here. You can take some training from Faster Saves Lives, whatever. They can come down and see you in Arkansas, and these people aren't, like you said, these people aren't stupid people. These are people with master's degrees and doctorate degrees. They could learn how to run a gun in what, in a day.
Or less. Yeah. But so it's not vital that the person that stops the active shooter has a gun. So what I tell them is, what you fight him with is negotiable. The fact you have to fight him mathematically is not negotiable.
Hmm.
So the schools have to do a big 180-degree change if they want a low victim count. If they want the status quo and 20, 30 victims every time a shooting happens, then just keep doing what they're doing. But they have to do a 180-degree change from survive, hunker down, try to slow down the shooter, and survive until the cops come stop him, to we will counterattack, we will have it stop, we will do the violence, we won't outsource the violence to the cops who will show up in 6, 8, 12 minutes. We will counterattack, and we'll already be treating and evacuating casualties. They don't want to hear that because they don't want to accept the reality that they are responsible for the violence. They don't like violence. They don't want to talk about it, much less plan for it, much less train for it, much less accept the responsibility that we have to be violent. But if they want to have a mathematical chance at a low victim count, they're going to have to accept that. this school. Now, it may be teachers, it may be coaches, it may be students, it may be principals, it may be custodians, cafeteria workers. I don't know, whoever can get to him first.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be everybody.
Mm.
It only needs to be one or two. Everybody's not mentally or physically capable of doing deadly violence against another human, but several people are. So out of the population of a school, hundreds of people, there's enough. There's several in there that are physically and willing and capable. They don't have to use a gun. I show right now 7 schools that were attacked by active shooters with guns that were stopped by people without guns, and that includes both students, staff members, and parents. But the gun is by far the most efficient tool. So if you're gonna once you accept the fact we are gonna have to fight him, then what should naturally follow that is, man, let's get the best tool. If so I talk to cops and I say, you get an active shooter call at XYZ school, you drive up, you can hear the popping noise inside the building. Are you going to take your pistol off and leave it in your car as you run in to face this active shooter? And they said, that would be insane to intentionally go fight an active shooter without my pistol. And it's like, well, that's what we're asking most schools to do.
Right.
Because a lot of schools in most places, even if they wanted to, they couldn't have a gun. It's against some state policy or it's against state law.
Right.
So
Right.
everything is against them doing what mathematically they must do, which is counterattack and fight. Uh, you can fight somebody with a gun at a distance. If you don't have a gun, you can still fight him, and we successfully have fought without a gun, but you're at a greater disadvantage because you have to get touching distance. You got to
Mm.
do it, but it's not as successful as doing it with a gun. The cops are going to fight him with a gun when they get here. That same thing would work 5 minutes before the cops get here if we just had some trained people with a gun there.
Right. The thing that I think is interesting is when I talk to people that are teachers, they will say things like, "I would." They're like meatloaf, right? They would do anything except they won't do that.
Yeah. Well, and those people that are like that don't have to. That's the beauty of this. Everybody doesn't have to fight. Um, we only needed Gina Som in that church with hundreds of people. We only needed Vic Stacy in that trailer park full of people. We only needed Jack Wilson in that church full of 200 people. So everybody's not capable or willing, and a lot of people in education are not mentally capable or physically capable. But out of 100, 200 people, there are a handful of people that are. So we need to identify who those are, make sure they're geographically spread out, and those fighters aren't all in one wing or one part of the building.
Mhm.
And we need to encourage them. Please, thank you for being capable and willing, because I'm not, but because you are, you can stop this and give us a low victim count. So let's spread you out. Let's get you training. Let's encourage you. Let's get you the best weapon that's legal. If that's a gun, let's fight to try to get you a gun and get you training. If it's not, then let's get you a baseball bat or something, a better tool to fight with. Because hunkering down on waiting on the cops is going to get you a high victim count.
Right. Right. The training people, the thing that I've gotten some pushback from some of my teacher friends is that they're concerned that the kids will get the gun and then shoot themselves, shoot somebody else, whatever, injure people because the kids don't know how to use the guns. To me, that's a really simple solution. Concealed is concealed, and you keep it on your body. Um, all of the people I know that are teachers, I'm going to say 98% of them are women. They don't have a problem putting their car keys in their purse and leaving that in their desk or in their closet or wherever they keep their stuff, their coat and whatnot. And I say the same thing. I said, are you concerned about high school age kids? Are you concerned about junior high kids stealing your purse, taking your keys, and taking your car for a joyride? And they said, well, no, we're not concerned about that at all. And I'm like, well, if you have a gun underneath your clothes and nobody knows about it, it shouldn't be a concern.
Yeah, that's one I want to call the boogeyman arguments, and they're in the book. That's one. That's like there's 6, 7, 8. I know people. So it's like when you have a horrible abdominal pain, and the doctor tells you have acute appendicitis. That thing's going to burst any second now, and that'll kill you. Well, that's kind of bad. So what can we do about it? Well, we got to cut you open and take it out. Well, that's there's risk there, isn't there? Yeah, there's a lot of risk. Well, I don't want to do it because there's risk. Well, then the alternative is more risk. So what
Right.
they do is they take what time in math screams at us that we must do, be ready to immediately fight back. And because they don't like it politically, emotionally, per preference, then they find fault in it. And there is fault. There's risk in everything. So I tell them, uh, okay, I've never heard of this happening. It's possible it has, but I've never heard of a school resource officer getting their gun taken by a student. And most resource officers carry their gun openly where everybody can see it. Everybody knows it's there. Two or three football players could jump a cop in any school in America and take their pistol from them.
Mhm.
But it's never happened. Now it could, but we accept that very rare hypothetical risk.
Right.
Do we disarm school resource officers because there is a possibility students could take the gun away from them? Well, no. Same thing here. Plus, like you said, really best practices would be that the staff that are armed carry it concealed, so students wouldn't know who was armed or where the gun was to try to take it.
Right.
So
For
that's when
sure.
I know they're really grasping at anything other than doing what has to be done. When they say stuff like, "Oh, a student will take the gun away from them. Oh, they'll snap and shoot a student over something petty." Like, well, an SRO could do that, but
No, for sure.
we don't, because of that rare hypothetical risk, we don't take all guns away from SROs because we know that the risk is worth having. And we just got to do the same thing with staff and adult staff. And again, it's not they arming teachers is a political term like assault weapons, Saturday night special, cop killer bullets. It's meant to sound bad. We're going to go around handing guns out to all the staff. We're going to arm them. When really what we're talking about is very passive. We're not arming. It's not proactive. We're just going to stop disarming.
Mm.
Because right now, any of the staff that would volunteer to carry on campus to protect us all, they're already carrying everywhere else. They're carrying in
Everywhere,
Walmart,
everywhere
movie
except
theater,
school. Yeah.
pharmacy, oil changing place, dry cleaners, doctors. They're carrying everywhere else. Just right now, before they step onto campus, they have to disarm.
Hmm.
That's an exception where they're not carrying. We just got to quit disarming. So that's very passive, and it
Yeah.
would take a leap of hypothetical imagination to say these people that are already carrying, the school staff members right now in your state that are already carrying, aren't causing a problem anywhere else. But suddenly, when they walk on campus with their gun, all kinds of rabid problems start up.
Right.
It's emotional and political, and that's a huge hurdle to get over.
Yeah. They do try to find excuses like there's a reward, right? They're always looking for something.
Yeah, it's too dangerous. They got too much to do. They don't have police training. Well, they don't need police training. I'll give you a long list of armed citizens who did very well at shooting and stopping active shooters without hurting anybody else that had no police training.
It's
Shooting a pistol is lining up two things and pulling a lever. Humans were shooting large mammals with guns hundreds and hundreds of years without a badge.
mm,
Shooting a mammal with a gun is not a law enforcement specific task. Millions of Americans every year go out and shoot deer. They don't require a badge or police training to do that. Uh,
right.
Shooting an active shooter requires bravery, which is not a police specific thing because that mammal's shooting back, unlike the deer or the antelope or the elk that you might go
Yeah.
see.
I always
Um,
I always think of this when we talk about training, yes, people should get training if they're going to have a gun and they're going to carry one and have one for home defense, and you should absolutely get training. But I always think of there's this video that's been around for forever, and it's this older couple that's sitting at home, and the man's in the living room on his chair, and somebody tries to break into his room, and he yells out, "Edith, get the gun!" And then they show some B-roll of her waddling through the house with a break action shotgun, and I'm like, they probably had zero training other than, hunter, probably not even a hunter ed class because people probably tried to learn to hunt from their parents who made it through the depression when they needed to hunt for food. Um, like you said, you don't have to have police training. You don't have to have any special training. You need to know how to use a gun and have the stones to use it.
yeah, Eli Dicken was a 22-year-old car mechanic in the Indianapolis area in a mall in a crowded food court. When a shooter started there, he had no police or military experience, had no professional gun training, and shot at the active shooter 10 times, hit him 8 times. 8 out of 10 at 43 yards, 22 yards, and 8 yards.
That's
Uh,
unbelievable.
Vic Stacy in a trailer park in Texas shot an active shooter with a handgun 5 out of 5 times at 55 yards. Had no police training at all.
Wow.
So then I counter that with who had over 20 years of police training. That would be the SRO at Parkland who didn't go in the building. I don't know how many decades of police training account for the other 7 deputies from Broward County who didn't even get within 50 yards of the building, even though they could hear the shooting.
Hmm.
Four out of 5 cops hid at the big church in Houston, Lakewood Church. 4 out of 5 cops hid when the one cop went down and had a gunfight with the active shooter. And then we know about Uvalde. We know about Columbine. There's
Yep.
something to be said for having skin in the game.
Hmm. For
If they're
sure.
attacking your house and your kids, if they're attacking your school where you work and your kids, your church, for instance, if they're attacking your church, your fellow church members versus someone who's just paid $25 an hour to be there as an easy overtime. Now, I'm not
Right.
saying they won't act. In my Heroes Conference this few days ago, Greg Stevens, 59-year-old cop, 59-year-old motorcycle cop, uh, being paid overtime at a public event when two terrorists showed up with rifles and body armor. He drew his pistol and shot and killed both of them. So,
Wow.
uh, but that's a very rare exception when the cop was there right when it started. That's extremely rare. Usually,
Right.
you're going to have to make a phone call. That'll turn into a radio call. That'll turn into police travel. And the cops will show up somewhere between 4 and 12 minutes after the first shot.
After
You know,
something happens.
the Covenant School, Nashville, that's a huge metropolitan city with a huge metropolitan police department,
Mhm.
but they also have traffic. First cop got there 14 minutes after the first shot.
Well, I do want to come back and talk about the conference, but I want to talk about
Yeah.
what you're kind of leading into is time and math. This is what you say is the solution to everything. If you can get to them within 30, if you can stop them within the first 30 seconds, then you only have single digit victims, right?
Yeah, it's the same thing if your kitchen caught on fire with your stove. If you grabbed an extinguisher from under the sink and put that thing out within 15 or 20 seconds, you'd have damage, but it'd be minimal. The longer you let that fire burn, the more that's going to be destroyed. The
Right.
shooter shoots he's going to shoot a new person every few seconds. He's going to shoot a new person roughly every 3 to 5 seconds in the first minute, every 6 to 8 seconds in the second minute, every 10 to 12 seconds in the third minute. So it's quite predictable as long as you wait on cops to show up.
Mm.
Usually there's more than 10 people shot before the first 911 call is made and heard by the operator. There's usually somewhere plus or minus around 20 people shot by the time the first cop shows up. And that would be relative. No, I'm sorry, that's before the cops get told about it. And then
Mm.
there's usually 25 to 30 shot by the time the first cop pulls in the parking lot.
Right.
So if an organization's plan is to wait for the cops to stop it, they're mathematically they're almost guaranteed a double digit victim count over 10. Now, how much over 10 it'll be, there's too many variables. But
Right.
but time and math are bitches, and they pretty much dictate this out. And then when the police arrive, how aggressive are they going to be to get in the building? Are they going to stay outside for 3 hours like we did at Pulse, 2 hours like we did at Columbine? Well, 40
Mm.
minutes actually, but took them 2 hours to get to the body.
Right.
Are they going to rush in and stop it? But even if a cop that's called by 911 rushes in and is brave and aggressive and stops it, you're likely to be in the mid 20s on the
Yeah.
victim count. If we wait on cops, it's all about time and math. That's all it is.
Right.
So, given the average active shooter rate, it's not 100%, but a very, very high percentage chance of having a single digit victim count, 0 to 9, which is what I think our goal should be. He has to be stopped within the first 30 seconds. And there is no way, once you realize a shooting is happening at your location, to communicate with someone who's not currently at your location and get them to your location within 30 seconds. So,
Yeah.
by default, the people there, the victims he came to shoot, they have to stop him. And it's very rare that a cop is within the group of people that he came to shoot because active shooters go out of their way not to start their attacks in front of a uniformed cop if they can help it.
Yeah. Smart on their part, right?
Yeah.
Um, what are a couple of other things that are in the book that you suggest? There's a couple I think that are really good, like the
Well, as far as suggestions, the first thing is to get out of everything is focused on how do we hunker down and survive and how can we get the cops there a little bit quicker? Panic buttons, apps on our phone. And all that is trying to reduce the victim count from 30 to 28 or from 30 to 20, and I'm all for reducing the victim count, but I'd rather reduce it down in the single
drastically.
digits, which
Yeah.
means so we have to do it from hunker down, survive, and outsource the violence to the cops to we have to be violent as much as we may dislike that. Mathematics says we have to be violent. So that we have to understand the math of this. And if you do, there's no other option but that we have to be violent. So I kind of compare it to when you lift up a trash can outside and roaches start running from under the trash can, you start stomping them. You can't get them all, but you can get a lot of them because all they're trying to do is evade you. That's all they're trying to do. And
Right.
that's where most schools and churches, most schools, and still too many churches are today. We have to be like a wasp nest, where when he thumps that wasp nest, he immediately stops thinking about what he wanted to do to you. And he's immediately concerned about what you're doing to him.
Mhm.
Churches, the two biggest things are they have to have a welcoming party, an armed team. We're now 3 out of 3. 3 churches that have armed volunteers. When the active shooter shows up, we have a single digit victim count. We were 2 out of 2 until a couple of months ago in Michigan. Now we're 3 out of 3. And because about half the active shooters at churches start in the parking lot, meaning they start shooting outside the church building,
Mhm.
the churches have to have the welcoming party, part of it, out in the parking lot. Because if we can stop him out there, our chances of a low victim count are huge.
Gotcha.
Schools, again, schools generally, if you, I'm just making this up, but I think it's accurate. If you, 98% of schools in America have option one or option two, I call it. Option one is if an active shooter starts, we're going to hunker down and we're going to call 911, wait on the cops. Option two is very similar. It's we're going to have a cop, an SRO somewhere on our huge campus. The shooting very likely will not start anywhere near that cop. So when the shooting starts, we'll still call 911 and we'll wait on the cops, either the SRO on the campus or the other cops to stop this. And that has a long history of failure. And that's what most schools still have. Even though we've got 40 years of those two options giving us high victim counts, most schools still have that. And we have to change that from this school will be like a wasp nest. This school will fight back and we'll have it stopped. So we have to teach the people who are physically and mentally able. We have to teach them how to fight. Now, if that's with a gun, we got to train them with a gun. If by choice or by law they're not going to have a gun, then we have to train them how to fight the active shooter without a gun. And I'm not talking about jujitsu classes. Teach them who the active shooter is, that they're not expecting anybody to fight back, that they don't have the mindset or the skills to fight back, that they're low skilled on the gun. We have to teach people what reloads and malfunctions look like, because there's no better time to fight somebody with a gun than when the gun doesn't work during a reload or a malfunction. And that's happened several times.
Mhm.
How they show them videos of active shooters walking back and forth during the attack. So eventually they're going to turn their back on you. And there's a great time to attack. They've been shooting a gun inside of a building. Their hearing is probably impaired. They
Mhm.
could also have auditory exclusion. It works on the bad guys just like the good guys. So by
Right.
rushing him from a position where he can't see you, he's probably not going to hear you either. Show them how doorways take away almost all the advantages of being armed, because their vision is blocked until they break the threshold. And if you're waiting on both or one side with baseball bats, hot coffee, fire extinguishers, or just tackling, you have a great chance of success. And then optimize the best weapon. If it's legal, then have guns, because by far they're the best weapon. When a cop runs into an active shooter, he's got a lot of tools on his belt, a whole bunch of more tools in his car. He's not going to be holding his cuffs, his radio, his taser, his baton. He's going to be holding his gun, because that's the best weapon. But if by choice or law you're not, then bring in other tools, baseball bats, pepper spray in the huge bear cans that shoot a long way.
Right.
Optimize your tools. But we got to stop focusing on nonviolence, turning out lights, hunkering down, turning the light switch, pulling down shades, which makes them very comfortable, but it gets them killed on attack day. We
Right.
have to stop focusing on slowing the active shooter down until the cops get here and getting the cops here quicker, till we'll have it stop before the cops ever get here. In fact, we'll
Very
probably
cool.
be evacuating casualties before the first ambulance gets
Right. Jeez. Um, there's a ton of great ideas in the first 30 seconds. So everyone should go check that out. And obviously, we're going to put a link in the show notes and in the book for this. Um, Tell us about the Heroes Conference that you just put on recently.
Well, yeah, since for the last, I don't know, 15 years, I've been traveling around the country going to a lot of conferences about the active shooter. At a lot of these conferences, they'll have one of the heroes that just happened to be at the right place at the right time and stopped them with a gun. And I've met several of them, which is a great honor. Heard them speak, heard their stories. I'll never pass up a chance to hear them again,
Yeah.
because these are very ordinary people that just found themselves in very extreme conditions and did super ordinary things. So the four I knew, I said, I went to this conference and heard this guy, and I went to this conference and heard this guy. Why don't we have a conference just for these heroes, about what they did and what led
Mhm.
up to it, and then the aftermath? And so the four that I knew the best, I asked first. They all four happily, to my happiness, said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So we had four speakers. Each of them had about an hour and 15 minutes to tell their story, with a break in between. And then we had, at the end, we had all four of them up at a panel discussion and just hit them with questions and let anybody answer. We had Jack Wilson. Most people probably saw the video inside his church, because they live streamed the service when a guy
Mhm.
pulled out a pump shotgun and shot two people. Jack pulled his concealed pistol and shot the guy and killed him less than 3 seconds after the first shot of the attack, which is incredible. Officer Greg Stevens, 59 years old when it happened, had signed up for overtime to work this big public event,
Mhm.
and two terrorists showed up in a car, both wearing body armor, both with AK-47 rifles. Both of them got out of the car and started shooting. And a 59-year-old cop drew his Glock 21 and shot them both to the ground, then reshot them both again, killing them both, stopping the attack. That ended with one leg wound, one victim, when
Oh,
two guys with body armors and rifle showed up. Stephen Williford, the guy who ran from his house barefooted, 3 houses down to a Baptist church that was getting attacked, when he was woken up out of a nap by his daughter, and told,
daughter.
"Daddy, there's a guy down at the church shooting people." Got up, got his rifle, ran down there and shot that guy. And then Pastor David George, uh, yeah, in outside of Olympia, Washington, preached his Father's Day sermon, then went to Walmart with his family. That's where an active shooter attacked. And because he didn't know where all of his family members were, and he feared the active shooter might target one of them next, he reluctantly drew out his Glock 19 that he was carrying at Walmart and shot and killed the guy in the parking lot. So just four amazing people, again, normal, going through their normal lives when this happened.
Mm.
And they just did amazing things. And they didn't just talk about the attack; they had talked about what led up to it, their aftermath, mental health, the media, how the courts and the prosecutors and the law treated them, how their friends and family treated them. It's just a real eye opening experience.
That's great. It's amazing. I like to bring up Stephen Williford when I teach classes. I've had a chance to interview him in Pennsylvania, and I said he grabbed an AR, he grabbed a high cap mag, or a magazine as they call them in Texas, and a handful of ammunition, which ended up being, I think he said, 8 rounds of 223.
8 rounds. Yep.
And this is why you should have a stored magazine, have a loaded magazine stored somewhere in your house when something happens, because you never know when something's going to happen. And you're gonna gotta it's preparing for everything, right?
Yep. He
Staging the
says
house.
his best estimate is it took him 91 seconds to get to his gun and get down there, and it'll haunt him the rest of his life,
Mm,
because how many people got shot in the time it took him to do that. He's a great hero, and he saved lives, and he stopped the active shooter. But the fact that he had to get his gun out of the safe and load it, um, probably cost lives, and even worse, they were lives of people he knew, because he didn't go to that church, but he knew everybody that
you know
knew him.
everybody in the church, yeah.
So he says every time he heard a shot, it wasn't just a shot; it was a bullet ripping through the body of somebody that he knew and loved. So yeah, tough. Because time, but I use him as an example of, he understood time mattered. That's why he ran out of his house without shoes, loading his gun as he was running.
Yeah.
Not popping his trunk and sitting in his car gearing up while people are getting shot, because he knew every second mattered.
Mm, that's amazing. It's incredible. All right. Well, listen, we need to wrap things up. Is there anything else you'd like to let the Arm Lifestyle magazine? Anything you'd like to say? Anything you'd like
Well,
to
I,
bring up?
I travel the country and train churches, schools, law enforcement agencies, and businesses. If you know anybody like that, or a conference for any of those things, and they want me to come talk to them, I definitely will. I'll train churches, businesses, and law enforcement agencies. My book, First 30 Seconds, is on Amazon, 19.99 for the paperback, 3.99 if you're one of those ebook Kindle people. So pass that around and get that out. It's sad, but the sales have had another huge bump again after this recent shooting in
Sure.
Minneapolis.
Yeah. I honestly, um, my kids aren't in public school anymore, but I absolutely thought about buying the book for first people I know that are in schools and being like, hey, you might want to check this out. Might be worth reading, you know?
Yeah, a lot of people are saying they're buying it for their school board, for their superintendent, for their principal,
Yeah.
for
That's
elected officials. Yeah.
yeah, the elected officials. These are really the people who got to wake up, right?
Well, that's a problem, because it's the elected officials, superintendent, and school boards that make the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
It's the principals and below that are getting shot because of the poor decisions. So the people that are
Yeah.
making the bad decisions aren't paying the price for it. It's the
Mm,
people beneath them in the school buildings that are paying the price, and they're not really the decision makers.
right. I remember one of the schools I used to work at. I was good friends with the principal, and she called me in and told me her husband bought her a snub nose revolver, which of course is not the greatest thing, but whatever. Bought her something. She was excited. We went out, to the range, did some shooting. And I in Massachusetts, you cannot carry a gun into a school unless you have permission from the head of security. So I tried to convince her. She was the head of security. I'm trying to do the Jedi mind trick, and she said she didn't think it was her. She said she needed to talk to the pastor of the church. And I said, well, when you ask the pastor for a letter, ask him for 2 letters so I can carry one too. And she never did. So so much for that.
Yeah, they desperately want a non-violent solution to an extremely violent problem. But hey, the snub nose could be a gateway gun. It could gateway them in to get something better later.
For, yeah, they're going to shoot it a few times and say, this isn't for me. I need to get something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I had one friend. I took a lady shooting one time. Um, she took a class. We went shopping. She didn't want to get a revolver. Ended up with a Ruger LCR. We went to the range. She fired 20 rounds out of it. She's like, my hand hurts. I'm like, okay. And it is what it is, right?
Yeah. You say, here, try this, and it's a gateway gun. And then they buy their next.
But yeah, she didn't want to. I don't think she wanted to rack the slide on anything. I don't think she wanted a revolver, but I don't think she wanted to rack the slide on a semi-auto. So even like the Smith Easies. Anyway, well, listen, we're gonna put some links in the show notes to this. We'll put some tell everyone that they can find the book on Amazon. They can find your Last Resort Firearm Training. They can find that on Facebook,
Yeah.
and you list all your classes all the time on there, like all the places that you're going all over the country.
Yeah, about every week or so. I just did it today. I'll post my active shooter stuff on what we're going to do coming up, and active shooter instructor classes that I hold here. But anybody can always call or text or email me if they're interested because I'm going all over the place.
Very cool. Well, we're going to put that information below. And Ed, thank you so much for being on. Thank you all for tuning in and watching the show. And we will see you guys later in the pages of Armed Lifestyle Magazine. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Charlie.